All right, Jordan, the red light's on. This is the moment, right, where we have to record a hit. So don't screw up, okay? Just kidding.
Okay.
All right, well, let's start off with a quick sound check. Why don't you tell my listeners what you had for breakfast this morning?
Yeah. Okay. This morning I had green tea, and
Okay.
then I had eggs and a pancake. And here
Okay.
in like a Dutch pancake here is like, I live in Amsterdam. It's a really thin pancake, so it's almost like
Okay.
a crepe. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. But it's still called the pancake.
Yeah.
That's okay. Uh, so is there anything like? Do they put the blueberries, the chocolate chips, anything fancy in it, or is it just maple syrup?
It,
You put the maple
I
syrup
just
on it?
do plain. I'm
Okay.
sure at the breakfast spots around here they do it all, but yeah, at home I
Okay.
just go plain.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Well, that sounds like a tasty breakfast this morning.
Yeah.
So, awesome. I think we're sounding good. Let's jump in. Let's jump into it. So, why don't you tell my listeners what you're currently raising money for over on Kickstarter?
Yeah, so my company is called Dooeys, and basically our project is slip shoes. So basically, they are stylish and supportive shoes for home that are made from sustainable materials. So the idea is to reimagine what the slipper or a standard pair of house shoes are, and really make them good looking, comfortable, and shoes that are doing good for the planet by
Sure.
being made of thoughtful, innovative materials.
That's awesome. Where does this idea sort of fit into your life in terms of like I'm going to go ahead and start making shoes? It feels like that's not something that are you a cobbler now? Is that a term that you put on a resume, or like how do you
Yeah,
get into like trying to solve this problem that you found?
yeah, totally. Well, I am not like, my experience is not in the shoe industry, so I'm learning every day here. Um, my background is in startups and management consulting, and really how I came up with the idea is I moved to Amsterdam just over 2 years ago, and I realized as I transitioned from working in an office with clients to working from home 100% of the
Hmm.
time, and I realized I was having to choose between wearing supportive, comfortable sneakers, that go outdoors, or unsupportive indoor slippers. So I started looking for, what alternatives are out there? What could I wear that's stylish and supportive? And I just really couldn't find anything that at least fit what I needed and my
Mhm.
style. So I decided to create my own solution that combines style, support, and sustainability.
That's cool. So now that you've identified it, like, again, so I can sit around and kind of identify all kinds of things that bother me. I'm like, oh, I need a solution for that. But like for you, how do you then take that first step of like, okay, I'm going to go and solve this now? Like Google, like, what
Yeah,
happens from
yeah.
there? You know?
Totally. Well, I'll say before this idea, I had a couple others, and nothing, I didn't know at the time that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I just started coming up with ideas. But this was the one that stuck. So it was the
Hmm.
one that, yes, I started Googling. I ordered, how to start a shoe company. There's a book that's
Oh,
literally
really?
called that, so there's so many resources out there that you can find, and just through my personal network, finding people that were even on the fringes of the shoe industry, just really piecing it together. I feel like there's just so much out there, that something that you have no idea about, you can figure it out pretty quickly, or at least where to start.
Right. So in that process, was there something that you saw that felt like it wasn't, a gigantic mountain? Like, okay, I'm not nuts. I'm reading this and going, I could do these 10 steps. Or like, was there something that you found that you were like, I can do this?
Totally. Well, I think first and foremost that How to Start a Shoe Company book really broke it down for me. So that was like, okay, I have a pretty good sense of like all the different areas that I would need to focus on to start a shoe company, from design to logistics to customer service to all of that. So that kind of gave me a handle of the general scope. But yeah, more of diving into the research of what countries are known for making high quality
Mhm.
shoes and things like that. Once I started diving into that, and I connected with a footwear agent in Portugal, that's where I really started to feel more comfortable. Like, okay, there are experts out there, there are
Mm.
people that kind of shepherd me in this process, so I'm not totally on my own.
Right. Now, inside of that, um, how much were you thinking in terms of like a style or a brand or a story, a narrative? Was that stuff starting to kind of come at this point, or was it still a little bit more just technical, like, okay, A, B, C, D, right? Like more equations as opposed to like, I want it to look like this because the page, I mean, it looks great. Like they look very stylish. There's clearly is
Yeah.
like a vision here. What point do you start to interject that sort of vision into this, what you're working on?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I feel like in the very beginning, it's focused on, okay, what problem am I solving? What is the product going to be? Who is it going to serve? But I feel like shortly after really getting the conceptual idea, that's when I started the branding process
Mm,
so that the branding and the product development really coincided so that each could help inform one another as it went. So, for instance, the first style that I designed was a pair of sneakers. I did not
mm,
launch any sneakers.
all right.
And that helped because as I started developing the brand, I realized, and I'll show the shoes here just for
Yeah.
anybody that
Yeah.
can see. I ended up realizing, no, the brand is more of these, stylish everyday shoes, like loafers like these, or slip-on mules that women wear indoors and outdoors. But really, loafers and mules were more on brand at that point than a sneaker that you can
A
run
sneaker.
around the house
Right.
in. And as I surveyed and talked to more women, they really helped inform those kind of decisions that
Hmm.
were critical to building the brand.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So when, as you're okay now, so now you're going along and you're putting all this together. When do you start to really have validation that you should continue forward? Right? Like, did you get a first prototype back? Did you get something that you were like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this? Was there something that was just like a
Yeah,
monumental moment in that?
I think it was the prototypes. Probably, I mean, I went through like 7 rounds of prototypes, but it was by like the second round that things started really falling into place and being able to show people physical shoes.
Right.
I think it really resonated with them. Whereas when I first came up with this idea 2 years ago, people were like, Jordan, what? House
Yeah.
shoes? No, like
Just
I
just
have
go to the
my,
store. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do you like? What
Right.
is this? And then once the prototypes really started coming together, people were like, oh, I get it. Shoes that are unlike furry slippers,
Right.
stylish shoes to wear at home, that can support, whatever you're up to in your daily life at home.
Hmm. That's great. That's awesome. So through that process of prototyping, you know, what I have found from coaching a lot of project creators is that there can be a lot of down moments in that of like, getting that first one back and you're like, that's not what I thought. That's not, how did you kind of, get through those moments of like, okay, it's not exactly it, but I know it's going to like, is that just something that you just have in your DNA because you work in startups and you just know that like the first draft isn't it like but how do you sort of just coach yourself through it mentally not to you know get down? It's
Yeah,
because I'm assuming for you like everybody else it's this, right? Ups and downs.
it's a
So
lot of ups and downs. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's not easy, but I think when you're really excited and passionate about the product, you can wait, sometimes between prototypes, it's 5 or 6 weeks that you're
right.
waiting for that updated material or just your factory to have the bandwidth to work on that next round. So it's definitely hard, but I will say starting a business, there's plenty to do. So at least there's a lot of other aspects of the business that I could focus on during that time, whether it was, starting to think about crowdfunding or, strategizing, how I'm going to fund this and all of that. So yeah, I kept busy, but you definitely have to have a positive mindset and be patient.
That's cool. Now during that whole process, what was the thing that was keeping you up at night the most, that you were like the most worried about? Funding or product design or customers
Yeah,
feedback? What was keeping you up?
I think for a while there, it was the materials themselves because the fashion industry, I mean, it's one of the highest contributors to pollution out there. And I really wanted, if I was going to do this, I wanted to do it right. And it took me about a year to find the materials that I ended up making these shoes with. So I think that was one thing that really kept me up was like, why can't I find a sustainable vegan suede? It has to be
Hmm.
out there. There has to be something like in my price point, all that. So yeah, I definitely spent some nights tossing and turning on that, but it all came together with time.
That's cool. Now, how did you get into like startups? Not just this particularly, but just your background. Like what was your background and stuff?
Yeah. So shortly, like right after I graduated college, I joined a startup. It was a, local startup in Seattle where I'm from. It was a beauty company. It was so much fun. So yeah, really, it was just right out of college. It was my first job, which is amazing because in a startup environment, you get to wear so many different hats and
Mhm.
try new things. So it was through that, experience that I was able to, understand marketing, get a feel for customer service, start learning more about operations and logistics and supply chain. So yeah, it was that experience that I feel like really prepared me to, take on or become an entrepreneur
Right.
now.
Now, was that something that, like, even growing up, that you thought that you would always have your own business or something like that? Or was it just that sort of, I just got this job and I liked it and just kind of kept weaving your way like that?
Yeah, I never thought when I was younger, I never was like, I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to be an entrepreneur, which I look back and I think is kind of funny that I didn't because my dad does own a small business. And
Mm,
so now I'm like, oh, I'm kind of following in his footsteps.
right.
But yeah, when I was little, I definitely didn't dream of designing shoes or anything like that. But yeah, I'm glad I landed where I did. I'm really excited about Dooeys and bringing this product to the world.
That's cool. Now, you mentioned that you moved from Seattle to Amsterdam, correct? I think you said a second ago.
Yeah, that's right.
What's been like the startup, like, support? Do you find that there's a lot of support around what you're working on, not only for your, I think, your job, but like for what you're working on? Is there,
Mhm.
funds that you could access, or just resources, I guess, around you? Maybe be a better word. Is that what it's like there?
Yeah, Amsterdam's a super friendly startup community. I've joined quite a few like entrepreneur meetup groups here, which is a great way. As you were mentioning earlier, there's so many ups and downs as an entrepreneur and things that you have to be patient and disappointments along the way that you kind of need those support groups of
Right.
people that are going through something similar. So that's been really great. And my understanding is Amsterdam also does have a lot of great funding resources. I personally haven't tapped into those as an expat. A lot of things, are for
Right.
citizens of this
Yeah. Yeah.
country. But I've been thrilled with the resources that I have been able to connect with and take advantage of.
Now, in a startup like this, are you working with a team of people, or is it mostly just yourself right now on the Kickstarter?
It's me, but I mean, I've had support and great people all along the way, from someone kind of being a sounding board on branding and helping refine my copywriting to, someone, two women that shot my Kickstarter video. So there's been a lot of other people that I've engaged with on the way, but when it comes to like day to day and the business, it's uh it's me right now.
Well, so
I
with
hope
that,
that
no, it's great.
Oh, I was
With
just
so
gonna say
two,
I hope to build out a team in the
yeah,
future.
well, two things in that. So one is, y- you know, because it's just you. At what point are you noticing the things that you need help on? You mentioned the two women helping with the video. Like, at what point are you going, you know what? I know I have an iPhone, but I probably shouldn't shoot this. How are you, like, self analyzing yourself to say, I'm not going to actually do every single thing? You know what I mean? And how do you have that trust? And
Yeah,
what are you looking for as you're going through this process?
I think you learn a lot along the way of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and I think something that's key for me is to like spend time a couple times a week reflecting, and I literally just have to write down like what I'm dreading doing this week, because to me that's usually an indicator of what I'm not so good at.
Right.
Is yeah, you don't want to do it. So I'm trying to track those things along the way, and there are things like virtual assistants that I'm beginning to tap into to help with reducing some of the time that I'm spending on like a lot of little things, like pulling in someone to help me with reviewing and optimizing some of our marketing efforts and things
Right.
like that. But yeah, I think it really comes first from self-awareness of just knowing what you're good at or what you hate doing, and then
Sure.
finding that support to plug in.
And I think you kind of mentioned this, but my second question I was thinking about is, how do you then manage time with jobs? Some people might have kids, or or families
Yeah.
going on family stuff. as well as knowing that like, hey, running a Kickstarter, as we'll probably talk about in a minute here, takes a lot of time. There's a lot going into it. So how do you, is there tools that you use? Is there a structure that you do so that, you know, you're not letting stuff that slip through the cracks?
Yeah, I'm yes, I try to be really organized. It's one of my strengths, but obviously it can also be a weakness from time to time. The key things that help me are like I have a work plan that, you know, it goes for forever in the future of anytime I have a task or an idea or something, it goes into that work plan and it gets assigned, you know, is it marketing? Is it finance? And it gets a date and a priority. And so that every day I can look at this work plan and say, what's on my list for today? And then map it out of like, what can I feasibly tackle today and what can wait? And so that's really key for me, just on a day-to-day basis to keep up with things, but make sure that my time is being spent on the priority items, not the, you know, things that could wait 2 months because they have to do with fulfillment and I don't even have
Right.
my shoes produced yet.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. That's good. That's good. Well, let's talk a little bit. Let's flip over to the actual Kickstarter, which is why we're chatting, right? So as that we're talking today, you have about 12 days to go. When people are seeing this, they'll probably be 9 to 10 days, something along those lines. So you had about a $12,000 goal, and you've already hit that goal. You're at 14,000 while we're talking here. Let's talk a little bit about what did you start, or maybe let's start here. Why did you think Kickstarter should work for this, or why should you go after this? Why should you do crowdfunding? Like, when did that start to kind of come into your mind as I want to do a crowdfunding campaign?
yeah, I think crowdfunding really came into my mind this past summer. It's when I started building out a financial model of like, okay, I'm gonna launch this business. How is this gonna come together? And through that, you know, I'm a self-funded entrepreneur. So as I started looking at, you know, I did put together a pitch deck of like, should I go around and pitch this to people? But you realize pretty quickly, um, people want to see traction.
Yeah.
People want to see your product out in the market and how customers are responding to it. So I, you know, research crowdfunding, and it's just a great way to not only like it creates brand awareness. It's a great way to test your product's viability, discover who your customer is, and then also like cherry on the top is raise funds to put towards, for me, it's the first round of production.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I kind of discovered crowdfunding and really looked into it, it just seemed like the perfect fit for my small business.
Yeah. And what then, after you kind of make that determination, what starts to happen for you? Is it, you know, research? Is it finding other companies that you're in the ballpark of? What do you start to do?
Yeah, for me, it was just a lot of reading articles about Kickstarter and about different strategies to launch, because I learned early on that it's really Kickstarter is really about the preparation. I mean, the campaign itself, obviously, you need to be, you know, evaluating and optimizing things, but it's really in that pre-launch phase. So yeah, I would say it was just a lot of reading. I think I listened to one, you know, kick book on Kickstarter, and there's so many great podcasts like this to tune into and learn from others experiences. So that was kind of key for me, like the last 6 or 7 months, and then it was really 3 months before I launched was my like hardcore, like I'm actually creating the deliverables,
Right.
starting the marketing, all that, that, you know, was the preparation for launch day.
Was there any internal data points that you were looking for that you wanted to hit before you launched? Did you have any metrics of like, hey, I want 50 emails, 100 emails, 1,000 emails, 10,000 emails? Like, was there just anything that you wanted to see before you hit that launch button?
Yeah, I think for me it changed a little bit over time. It was I wanted to collect 2,500 emails, and to me that was a lot. I know, you know, I've heard there are many other more successful Kickstarter campaigns that build an email list that is beyond my wildest dreams. So kudos to them. But for me, I wanted to start small, so my goal was 2,500, and I surpassed that pretty quickly. So then my goal was 4,000, and I was able to generate just over 4,000 emails in advance of launch. And to be honest, I was really proud of that. But come the actual campaign, I learned that those emails didn't convert, didn't have as high as conversion as I had hoped. So although I think an email list is critical, I think there were steps along the way that I missed in measuring their engagement
Mm,
so that they were ready,
right.
to know that they were an engaged email list, not just a list of emails.
Right, right, right. Has there been anything that's stuck out in this campaign? I mean, you've ran most of the campaign at this point. Has there been anything that you're like, wow, we have a audience in Singapore or Malaysia, or I don't just anything that you were like, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking today, I was like, I can't believe someone bought my shoes who's from Hong Kong and Mozambique. Like,
Right.
I launched this campaign with shipping to the US and Canada because I wanted to start small and I wanted to start in my target market, instead of going global. But I was so thrilled to see that, people that have shipping addresses in the US where they're able to, purchase from abroad. It's just really cool to see all these other countries that I would have never expected that are purchasing the shoes.
That's cool. That's very cool. What has been, in terms of the Kickstarter itself, what has been the hardest thing to happen? Is it the page design, the emails? What do you think has been the biggest thing you had to work on and stuff?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many. I would say for me, what comes first to mind is the video. Um, I'm an introvert. It's not so easy for me just to have a video that like I'm,
You're the front woman,
introducing
right? You're
myself,
the
and
yeah.
yeah, like I'm the face of it right now.
Yeah.
So I think that was hard for me. But through just a lot of preparation and a great videographer and it came together really nicely. But honestly, for me, it was just building up. A lot of honestly being an entrepreneur is building up your own courage and trying to conquer like those self-limiting beliefs, because really right now it's myself and my customers that are going to get this brand where I hope it ends up going.
Right, right. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit maybe on the financial side of it, because again, the numbers could, you really probably wanted millions of dollars, right? But like, how did you start to figure out maybe a goal structure, rewards? How did those conversations sort of fit into the launch and what you were trying to achieve?
Yeah, I would say from a reward structure standpoint, my strategy was keep it simple. And that was advice that I got from reading different articles. I think there's obviously different strategies that you could go with, but I ended up going with basically you can buy one pair of shoes or two pairs of shoes. And we have two styles, the loafer and the mule. So it makes sense, if you want one of each, you can buy two
Hmm.
pairs. And then to layer on top of that, I did three different pricing structures. So one or two pairs, and then at a basically a VIP price, an early bird price, and a Kickstarter special
Kickstarter,
price.
yep.
Um, so that it I kept it pretty simple. And from a like funding strategy standpoint, I mean, my goal here is, I've reached it. I'm super thrilled to be serving these very early customers. Although I know some other campaigns they want as many backers as possible, I really want to get these shoes out into the market and hear women's thoughts on them
Hmm.
and continue to develop more colorways and styles and improve the materials and things like that. So I'm not trying to sell thousands in the beginning. I'm really trying to develop those early adopters. Those hopefully will be advocates for the brand in the future. Really build a relationship with them, and yeah, see where we see how we can make these shoes even better.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So, the campaign, like I said, about 12 days to go or so, takes a couple weeks for the money to all drop and get into bank
Yeah.
accounts and all that stuff. But what starts to happen for you? Like, how do you start the process of getting these shoes into women's hands?
Yeah, so I mean, right now I'm in close communication with my factory in Portugal. Even before the campaign, I purchased all the molds for these shoes because I just didn't want anything slowing us down. And so now we've placed almost all the material orders. I think we have one more to place. But yeah, basically, it's making sure that we have everything lined up for our production, our first round of production in May, and then to stay on track to ship to customers in June. So my focus right now is really just keeping that on track with obviously anything that's within my control and my factory's control, but there are things globally
Yes.
that are going on that,
Yeah.
we just have to kind of turn over control to.
Yep.
But that's really what my focus is on, as well as building out my website, Dooeys.com, getting that up and running so that I can continue, taking pre-orders just through my website until we can ship to customers in June.
That's cool. And what does this like next year look like? What are, after these Kickstarter backers get their shoes, what are you working on? What are you doing?
Yeah, I think it's really getting to know our customers, working on, more products. So whether that's, new colors, new styles, I really would like to launch a men's line. So it's starting to think about that, and hopefully building out a team. I really, I don't want to do this by myself
Yeah.
forever. I'd like to have a team to collaborate with and make these shoes as great as they can be. So I think that will be my focus over the next year.
And how about for you in like, the next 5 years, putting on those that future hat here and go,
Yeah.
where what do you see? Is it multiple different lines? Is it tons of different products? Is it just a men's and women's line? Like where in your heart do you want this thing to go?
Yeah. I mean, I really want to stay niche. So I want to stay niche to house shoes. Like I don't need there are plenty other shoe brands out there that can compete against each other for outdoor market. I want Dooeys to be the go-to shoes for home. So for men and women. So right now I'm really focused on women, but I can't wait to engage with men and see what their needs are and be solving for that as well. So yeah, I really hope that that name becomes synonymous with house shoes or slippers, whatever people term them in their home.
Well, I can tell you, my office slippers here, where I am right now,
Mm,
they're just slippers. They're not, I have to take them off if I have anybody roll in. So I could use a different something else.
yeah,
Also, too,
yeah.
like when it
Okay. Well,
snows
I'll
and
have to
stuff, and I
connect you.
take I take my boots off and then I put my slippers on, but they're just like literally just some slippers.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah. And
professional
that's the
looking on
idea
any.
behind that's the idea behind Dewey's is not having that shoe that you have to kick off the moment that you have a guest in your home and you're like,
Right,
oh shoot,
right,
I
right.
can't
Well,
be
yeah,
caught seen in these. It's
yeah,
that shoe that you're like, oh, I look good.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
my
exactly.
outfit's complete. So I'll have to
Yep.
send you some of the early designs for the men's line
Yeah,
to
I'll
get
wear
your
them around
input.
my
Yeah,
office. I'll be bopping,
yeah,
scatting them. Well, awesome. Well, how do people
perfect.
find out? Outside of the Kickstarter, how can people kind of dive into your world, learn about what you're working on, connect? Where should they go?
Yeah, so I would say first and foremost, check us out on Instagram at Dooeys.slipshoes. That's where we're, sharing the most content and just updates in our journey to launch and all that. So yeah, Instagram, and then Dooeys.com is our website. So if you're listening to this after the Kickstarter campaign, Dooeys.com is definitely where you can check out our shoes, see what we're all about.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Jordan, I know you're busy with a lot of stuff going on. You're in the middle of a campaign. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know my listeners are going to love this conversation. Very inspiring, and keep up the great work and continue raising those funds. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time, and this was fun.
Yeah, no problem. Awesome. Thanks so much.